I got the game, and they offered me the Michael Jordan cover or the Larry Bird cover. I had no idea why they were doing this. Could you explain to me why they're doing two different covers?
Actually, they did three different covers. They had Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Magic Johnson. Kind of just, they wanted to showcase, because of the fact that this year's version is a big part of the game is legendary players. So they had all three covers available. But the thing is that the Michael Jordan one is the one that they're going to keep going on throughout the year, while the Larry Bird and Magic Johnson covers are exclusive for the first run of the first set of copies that hit stores. That's
interesting, because I did not even get offered the Magic Johnson cover. Not that I would have taken it. I'm from Chicago. I love Michael Jordan. Going from the Jordan Challenges to the NBA Greatest mode, what exactly is the difference between the two?
Well, the thing is that with Jordan Challenges last year, they had you play specific Jordan memorable games in Jordan's career, but you had to fulfill certain objectives. You know, you had to get a certain amount of assists, you had to prevent a certain player from scoring this amount of points, you had to, Jordan had to, essentially you had to play Jordan the entire game and make sure that he racked up the most points. With NBA Legends, or the NBA's Greatest mode, all you're doing is just recreating and replaying some of the best players and best teams from throughout NBA history.
Now, one thing that has really caught my attention was the attention to detail of this game. Like, right when you put it on, you see Derrick Rose, LeBron James, Dwight Howard, and then they somehow put Larry Bird, Hakeem Olajuwon, Scottie Pippen in there. The presentation and the detail is vastly improved, in my opinion, from mascots being more realistic to the bench acting and responding to different dunks and plays more realistically. And even when you're setting up the pregame, it's kind of like those TNT games where you see the faces of the starters. Would you say the presentation is by far tremendous this year?
I'm always a stickler for presentation. As we've talked in previous interviews, I always want an experience when I'm playing a game to feel as though I'm actually either watching the sport or playing this, either on TV or in real life. And I think NBA 2K has just done such a great job with that. And I love the aspect of it when you're playing in a season mode and like between breaks, they'll actually have like advertisements for another game, not entirely connected with yours. And it just makes you feel like you're watching it like on TNT or at ESPN. It feels so real.
And I assume that those advertisers paid a ton of money to get those in the game. One thing also that we talked about before we came on, Marco and I were talking, when you play as Bill Russell and Bob Cousy, this is another detail factor you could say, the games are actually in black and white. Why did 2K12 decide to do this?
Well, it's part of the NBA's Greatest. So they wanted to make the players feel as though they're playing in that era. So, they made sure it was authentic where, you didn't have the three-point line until 1980. So they made sure that games held before that didn't have that. They made sure that the rules were still intact, that you're playing the game as it would have been back in that day. And I think it's good considering that the age of a lot of gamers isn't that high. A lot of gamers are under 30 like myself. So they don't know too much about that history unless they go into reading the books. So jumping in and playing that and getting to see how different the game played then and, the rules and the look, it just adds to the atmosphere. And I think that's what they really wanted to focus on this year.
True fact about Bill Russell, too. When he played, they did not record block shots for a little while. So he could be one of the best, if not the best center of all time. Just a fun fact there. The My Player mode, for some reason last year, I couldn't get into it. I don't know why, but I just could not get into it. Maybe it's because it took the longest time to get into the NBA. I know people are going to be knocking me on YouTube now for not being a good My Player. But I mean, why should I get into this year's version of My Player in 2K12?
Well, they fixed a few things. First off, they removed the aspect of having to play all those like pickup games before the draft. Mm-hmm. And having to like do all these objectives, and you start off really low. You start off in the 30s and 40s. Now it's just one game. Based on your performance, really factors in where you'll get drafted. You also start off with a slightly better rating. You're not in the low 50s. You're going to start off probably in 65, 66. Again, realistic for a young player starting in the NBA. And the cool thing is that they really implemented more interactiveness in terms of the mode. So before you even get drafted, after that game that you play in Madison Square Garden, 3 NBA GMs will ask you questions, and those questions will be tailored regarding what kind of player you are and what kind of city you're going, they're into. So if you're a point guard going into Washington, they're going to reference, John Wall. So you're like, are you going to be able to compete with being, the second behind him and this and that? So like they really did a good job in making you feel as though you are actually an NBA player growing in the NBA.
It seems kind of similar to me with the Madden series when they first started this My Player mode, when they would have to ask you questions and they would say, what do you think of Lambeau Field? Do you think that it's one of the best stadiums because it's historic? Or are you looking for a newer field? I mean, are they trying to gear towards not necessarily being a selfish athlete, but trying to take facts away from you to determine where you would be drafted in the end?
Yes and no. In the beginning, they do have that where when you get drafted. So, like, let's say the Knicks are interested in you, they'll actually state, you're going into New York City. You're going to be in an environment where the paparazzi are always going to be around you, and they ask you how you feel upon that. And they do give you 4 choices. You can say like, oh, I enjoy that. I soak that in, and I play even better. Or you can be like, I'm a private player and I don't feel that way. And you're not going to go that. They're not going to draft you in that regard. But later on, as you play in the season, after every game you play, you're going to be part of a post-game press conference. And there, they'll ask you again a question based on your performance in the game or based on the team's performance. And that then factors in, how well you're liked between with your players, with the rest of the league, and within fans. And that aspect I really enjoy where, depending on what you said, you can, either be a fan favorite or a team favorite. So it really did factor in how your player progressed throughout the season. That's
incredibly interesting. And again, very, very detailed from the pregame, the game, and then the post-game press conference. That's unbelievable. Has the online play changed at all from last year's?
Not that I've noticed. I did have some problems with a lot of people have at the beginning where there were some, connection issues and problems like that. But in general, I was able to get into some games. You told me earlier, off air that you were able to get into some games as well. So I think they fixed that since launch. It's been out for a couple of weeks. So that's something always with most games, a shooter, sports game, there's always going to be issues at the beginning because they're still trying to, tweak the system. But I think now if people get into it, they shouldn't have a problem, connecting and playing with others.
I forgot to tell you that when I did first get the game, I had a few connection problems. I played in 2 online games so far. I'm going to play more. But in the beginning, for some reason, it would lag, and it was, I mean, it was just bad. I mean, that's the best way to put it. What's the overall rating that you would give this game?
Again, I have to agree with what my cohort here at thegamespot.com rated it. We gave it an 8.5, and I felt it was, really great. Even though I love the NBA's greatest mode, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a history lesson. The games in particular weren't, they didn't really give you too much, background information and, why these 2 teams were particularly, chosen. And I kind of wish they had done that. Maybe next year, if they could get some sort of cooperation with NBA TV and actually show, real highlights from those games and kind of immerse us in the history of the sport, that's what I would really enjoy. But other than that, I thought, I enjoyed the changes to My Player. I love the presentation. I'm really picking up, it's a game that you can pick up and play and have a really good time with right from the start.
So with the history lesson, what you're talking about, would you want, let's say, before you get in the game, would you want them to have, gearing up with NBA TV, you would want Bill Russell highlights and Bob Cousy highlights and put a little fun fact on the side? Is that kind of what you're aiming towards?
In that regard, yes, they do. Within the game, they do comment on a lot of players. That they give you stats and they give you information in game. But it would be nice, as an unlockable. After you won with that team, they gave you a highlight reel of that player, so you kind of got a little bit more information on them because they give you, it's just a brief overlay on the screen, text-wise, but. Show us off, how good that player is, like a Pistol Pete Maravich, who so many people have heard of, but so few people, unless they go on YouTube and search it, they're not going to see how good of a player he actually was. So if they can kind of reward you after the fact and show you, why this game was important or why that player was so fantastic, it would have been a little bit, a nice little treat.
A true story about Pistol Pete Maravich, by the way, not to get off topic, but his dad would drive the car. The backside of the car would be open, one of the doors, and he would dribble a ball while the car is going outside. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know, Mark, if you knew that. One of the best ball handlers of all time. Fun fact. Is this a must-buy for sports fans and basketball fans?
If you're a basketball fan, most definitely. If you're a sports fan, I would say pick it up. If you're not into basketball, there are a lot of, there is a training mode. There's ways to learning the game itself pretty easily. So it's an easy pickup. But if you're a basketball fan, most definitely pick this up.
Just curious, you gave it an 8.5. I saw ratings of 9.5 and 9 online. What qualifies as a 9 to Marko Djordjevic in GameSpot?
It's ratings are like, our scores are based on, the reviewer's experience with the game. And for me, like I said, I wish kind of the NBA Greatest was a little bit more fleshed out. It was the only new mode in the game. They didn't really take much, challenge. They didn't take any, they didn't go to task and try to revolutionize the sport. And one thing with NBA 2K, I still find there's a little bit of a problem with the passing, where players will make awkward passing motions, or the computer will be able to pick off a pass even though they're not even looking at the play. And those are just little things that just need minor tweaks. And I think this game would have succeeded even more so had they had those little tweaks.
Marko Djordjevic of GameSpot.com, thank you very much for the time as always. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Hi, this is Ben Mankiewicz along with Rookie Mankiewicz, and Rookie has an important message for you. Subscribe to TYT Sports.